Okay. You know, I'm always looking for good news that I can bring to the podcast, and it's very seldom. Matter of fact, I got some bad news coming up here in a moment. But here's it. Officials in Tennessee's largest county, that would be Shelby County, Tennessee. That's the county in which sits Memphis, Tennessee. And they voted yesterday, officials in that county voted yesterday to study reparations for descendants of enslaved people. Now, this adds to a growing list of local and state governments that are considering such a thing or launching similar programs. Reparations. What? You know, this is something that white people just can't talk about in this country. I mean, your average white person. Yeah, a lot of progressives, a lot of people who have an understanding of ethical conduct or morality or the horror of enslavement or what to do with taking an entire population of people, millions of people, and treating them like less than dirt, like scum, ripping them out of their culture and society and language and religions and bringing them here and enslaving them to pick cotton or to harvest rice in a goddamn alligator infested swamp somewhere. I mean, so what do you do with a situation like that? Well, you can do what America has done. Just pretend, George Washington Carver. Just pretend like nobody has any responsibility for doing this to our cousins, our African-American cousins. I mean, who's going to be the first one to throw $100 in the kitty to start the process of reparations, which would take billions if we were going to just talk about money, but there's other ways to do reparations. So the Shelby County resolution in Tennessee will allocate at the beginning here $5 million to study and find what they're calling actionable items that they will use these items to address 5 key areas where it concerns reparations. They are these. First of all, increased access to affordable housing and home ownership. Second, health care parity with white people. Third, criminal justice reform. The idea being, for black folk, just treat us the way you white people are treated. The next is enhanced career opportunities. Boy, that's a big one, isn't it, huh? Somebody shows up for a job interview, and the interviewer sits there with a little bit of shock on his face, thinking to himself, well, damn, I didn't know he was colored. And financial literacy and generational wealth. What is financial literacy? Well, that's understanding how important it is to have a bank account or a checking. I know. We can say all we want about the banks. I hate them too. Okay, not a bank, a credit union then. But the necessity of having certain financial instruments that you can use to maintain your life, whether it's life insurance or checking accounts or savings accounts or 401ks or IRAs or whatever they are. Financial literacy that has been denied, for the most part, black folk for a very long time. So these are the things that Shelby County, Tennessee, are considering. And the resolution was overwhelmingly approved. There are 13 members of the Board of County Commissioners, Shelby County, 13. 8 of them are black, 5 are white. And this comes on the heels of the outrage in that city, that county, over the beating death of Tyree Nichols, who was killed by 5 Memphis cops. Doesn't make any difference that the cops were black last month. It never makes any difference the race of the perpetrator. It makes a difference the race of the victim in these kinds of killings. Several commissioners who took this vote said that Tyree Nichols' name was repeatedly mentioned during the lengthy commission hearing yesterday afternoon. And it was brought up as a reminder of lingering racism and iniquities that black folk have to deal with. One of the commissioners said, quote, $5 million won't right the wrongs of the past. My people are dying on the daily. That's why I support this. So I will watch and report on this one too. But the idea that finally, well, not, I mean, Memphis, Tennessee is not the first one. Evanston, Illinois is another city. Asheville, North Carolina is another one. St. Paul, Minnesota. There are a number of other municipalities that are undertaking these efforts. And in 2020, California became the first state, maybe you remember this, to adopt a law that would pave the way for descendants of enslaved people to receive reparation payments. And there was a 500-page report on those efforts in California released last year. And that report detailed the horrible shit suffered by descendants of enslaved people and how federal, state, and local laws were active in continuing the systemic racism in all facets of life for African Americans. This is one of the reasons that the white Christian fascists in this country, like Ron DeSantis and the rest of these scum, could not tolerate the idea of so-called critical race theory being taught, because critical race theory would show everybody, blacks, whites, I don't care what race, gender, it doesn't make any difference. It would show everybody in America who is getting a valid education exactly what enslaving millions of people and breaking their families into a million pieces and shipping them across the goddamn ocean where if they got sick, they were tossed overboard as shark food. I mean, the horrors that were perpetrated against people in order for capitalism to get a foothold in the so-called New World. If we whites, if everybody in this country, and blacks and Latinos and everybody, if we were to face this truth, this reality, I would hope that in facing that reality, we could come to some kind of a decision as to what to do about it. But there's not a black person in America who doesn't understand and doesn't feel this intergenerational horror of having family members who were enslaved. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.